And hello everyone, welcome to another PaintCast. We are here working on Anthony's Retribution. What we got going on today is Imperitus that we're working on. So for those of you who need some context, this is his Assyria that we did a few weeks ago on the PaintCast. And what we're working on now is Imperitus. Here is where he is at right now. Okay, here's where the shoulders are at. And where we left off last time is I was working on the orange on the shoulders. And if you recall, I was having some problems getting the color right and was getting a little frustrated. So I went back and looked at my recipe cards and I realized I missed a pretty important step, Anthony. And that step is I jumped from Bloodstone to Heartfire. And when we did your Assyria, we had used Cawdor Red Highlight as the kind of intermediate color. So today we're just going to go and correct that mistake. So I'm going to put a little bit of this on my wet palette here. And we're just going to slowly start building this back up and getting this looking like what it needs to look like. And we're putting this Cawdor Red Highlight base over most of the Heartfire and Bloodstone mixture. Might have to go in at the end and just add a little bit of Bloodstone into the edging to build up the shadow just a little bit more. And we're just going to have to build these layers up slowly here. Apologize about the background noise. My kids are watching some movies in the room next door and they like to watch them really loud. I'm going to let those kind of dry for a bit. Going to need a couple more layers, but we'll just let that sit for now. And what I may even do is airbrush some of that orange on, but we'll see. Hold off on that for a little bit. I'm going to work on the knee pads here. When you're working with really thin colors like this, it's important to allow enough time for it all to dry between coats. So set that aside for a moment. I think what I'm going to work on now is, I actually think I will bust out my airbrush, and I think I will get some of this orange color down. I'm just grabbing some masking stuff here real quick. 1 second, guys. Find my silly putty here. I can't find it. I've got something else I can use. Alright, can't find it. So silly putty is what I like to use to mask with, Greg, but in the event that you don't have that or can't find it, this stuff works really well. Tamiya masking tape. Lasts you a long time. It's fairly inexpensive, and it's not going to rip up paint layers beneath the tape. Last time I didn't bother masking, and paid for it a little bit because I had to do a little extra brush work. So this time I'm just going to give it a kind of a rough mask. I don't want to mess up the highlighting and shadowing that I've already done. So, and I'm not putting this on super tight, I'm not rubbing it on once I have it on. Just kind of gently setting it on the surface, on the area. Let's do this. I'm going to rip that in half. And the other way now. Okay. And one more little corner right there. Alright, that's that shoulder done. Same thing on the other one. Already, you know, blocked in those shadows and those highlights and the gray, and I don't want to go back and have to redo them, so it's worth taking the 5 minutes to do this. Also, the angle from which I'm going to spray is going to be very important also in ensuring that there's not any real overspray. I'm really going to make sure I'm spraying from this direction so that I'm not hitting any spots that may be poorly masked. Okay. Looks alright. Already got my airbrush running. Turn my hood on real fast. Move some stuff around on my desk here real fast. And, you know, Anthony, this happens. You know, you make mistakes while you're going, and things don't turn out exactly like you thought they would. You know, that's all normal. It's all par for the course. Especially with airbrushing. Especially when you first start out airbrushing, too, even more so. You know, you're learning those tricks, you're learning those shortcuts, and until you kind of get those down, there tends to be a lot of stripping and starting over. Okay. Okay. See how much better that looks already. And set that aside to dry. Okay, it's pretty good. We'll set that aside now. And what I am not going to do is I'm not going to spray any of that orange with the airbrush. But what I am going to do is we're going to clean out this orange, and I'm going to mix a little bit of frostbite into there, and we're going to start working on some of the OSL stuff here. Get that out of the way. So I'm using a straight frostbite. Going to thin it down pretty good. Because you're going to want to slowly build this layer up. Okay. Look at my hand here. There's our frostbite. And what we're going to do is we're going to follow these lines here and just as best we can create a little glow effect with the airbrush around the edge and on the gems. See, just like so. So there's front and back on that fin. Oh, one spot I forgot to get on this one. Hold on a second. Alright. Okay. Now on Imperitus himself, Okay. Alright, now let me clean out my airbrush here. The shoulders we're going to give the same treatment to, but that's going to be after I am done painting them. So I'm not quite done with those yet. So let me clean out my airbrush. Water here, clean it out, almost done. Okay. So the next step now is to take some P3 Heartfire, this guy right here, and we're going to highlight the edges of the shoulder pads now with the airbrush. And I'll come back in with a brush and some bloodstone, a little bit of umbral umber, and we'll add some shadowing a little bit later. That's about all I want to do there. The next one here. Okay, that one looks pretty good. Set that aside now. Clean out my brush one more time here. I'll let those shoulders dry for now. And we're going to go back to working on Imperitus and cleaning up this OSL. I'm going to show you guys what I'll be doing on that. Turn off my compressor, turn off my hood, and there we go, one clean airbrush. Okay, so set this aside now. Sorry for the big hairy arm in the screen there, guys. Okay, now we've got Imperitus here, okay. We've got his fins here and a bunch of cloudy looking overspray. Alright, so what we'll do is I'm going to take my wet palette here, we're going to put a little bit of frostbite on here, and now we're going to take a very fine tipped brush. I'm using a size 1, but it doesn't matter the size. What matters is the quality of the tip. You want to make sure there's a good tip on the brush. Okay, no splitting. Comes to a nice fine point. Here's the sharf that I use. You can see how nice and clean that tip is and how fine it is. Okay, that's what we're looking for. And you're going to take now the frostbite and you're going to paint. You're going to paint the insides of these cracks with the frostbite. Like so. And you're going to need a steady hand in doing this, Anthony. Because these lines here are your light source. This is where the glowing effect is coming from on the retribution models. So the airbrushing that I did was simply to block out that outer glow of this inner glow. Ah, crap. Sorry, guys. I gotta figure out some way to get that screensaver turned off. And you can already see how this is going to create, once it's all finalized, it's going to create that glowing effect. If you're having a hard time staying in the lines here too, Greg, or Anthony, something else you can do is mix a little bit of flow improver into your paint, and that'll help improve the capillary action of it, and it'll flow into the recesses and the cracks just a little bit better. And you may need, one or two coats. This technique is a little time consuming. And so if you plan on doing this type of effect over a whole army, make sure to seek psychiatric help and be prescribed the appropriate antidepressants. Okay. Here's a little tight. Okay, so that's that one side done. I'm going to let this dry for a second while we move to the main body of Imperitus and talk about some of these smaller, finer details in here. It's the same thing. Okay. Good brush, good tip. Okay, let's see how that's looking. Now the same thing here on the front chest area. And you're just going to repeat this over and over throughout the whole model. So I'm probably, Anthony, not going to document this whole process just because it's going to be time consuming and doesn't make for good TV. But let me show you now that this has had a chance to dry how we're gonna make this pop. What you want to do is get yourself some turquoise ink. Okay, and here is the one side that we already finished. So you're going to put a little turquoise ink on your wet palette and thin it down a bit. You can see how thin I've got it there. And what you want to do now is take some of this thinned turquoise and you want to pull it not into the cracks but just just around the cracks. Except right here around this gem, we're going to put that in there in that kind of a circular fashion there. Blend it up a little bit. You can see the glowing like effect that that's already creating. And if you really want to get in here, what you can do is you can add a little bit of this ink to these cracks, but just try to keep it more towards the sides. And then in the middle. You can see that glow effect building, and it's just going to take a little bit of time. And then the last thing you want to do on here, I'll just show this to you and then we'll move on, is take some Menoth white, or excuse me, some Morrow white. And you're going to want to put this in the center of these gems. Like so, and then try to blend the edge of it as best you can, and that'll intensify that glow-like impression. Now on Imperitus himself, so for example, like on his head right here, again we'll take some of this diluted ink, flow it right into that energy path. A little crack there. Okay, so like so. And then again, take our more white and hit the center of these little energy nodes, gems, whatever they are, not sure. And you can see the pop that makes. All right. Blending a little bit of this ink down into the frostbite overspray, just to help accentuate some of that glow. Okay, you see how that looks? Pretty dang cool if you ask me. And then we'll just put a little bit of more white there in the center. Alright, so that's basically the gist of how that's going to go all the way around. Okay, if we look, let me widen out my camera here. You know, we take this off and we put this fin there. Oh. Alright, you can see how that looks. It's going to look pretty cool when it's all done. And then of course the shoulders. Peel this off. Alright, you can see how those shoulders look. They turned out great. What I'll probably do, I've got my other airbrush with the smaller needle. That's the needle's damaged right now, so I've got to order a new one. But I'm probably going to, when that comes in, put a pretty heavy spray of frostbite right in here with overspray, mind you, to emphasize that glowing effect. So that'll go pretty cool. Let's see how that looks. Oh man, that was really cool. That Cawdor red highlight is the missing piece right there, man. That's what gives the orange the pop, Anthony. Let's check the other shoulder here real quick. Make sure that looks okay. Looks good. No issues. A little bit of overspray there, but we'll clean that up. That's not much at all. So, all right, those will get a glaze of ink too before they're done. So that's it on this one, Anthony. Pretty short and to the point. So what I'm probably going to do is I'll probably finish painting these glowing areas on my own, off camera. I've demonstrated the technique, so I'll go ahead and complete that now across the whole model. So it might be a while before you see an update on this guy just because of the time that it's going to take to do that. But in the meantime, if you have any questions, just make sure and let me know. And same with the viewers, if you have any questions or comments about what you've seen today, please make sure to email me at redmodeling@gmail.com, or you can hit me up on Facebook at facebook.com/redmodelingpaint. For now, though, I'm going to log off for about 10 minutes, kind of reset my equipment here. When I come back, we are going to be working on a very purple Bradigus. So keep your fingers crossed for that and your hopes up for that, right? So when I come back, we'll be working on that. Otherwise, guys, thanks for being here, and make sure to check back in, like I say, in about 10 minutes or so. I'll be back on air. Thanks a lot, guys.